Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Richardson and I'm doing my literature review on inequalities in education and how race, social class, and gender play a role in the types of educations that students will receive. The person who I chose to interview has worked in the special education department of the Poway Unified School District for the past 20 years. I chose to interview her because of her extensive history within the school system and because I thought she would be able to provide good insights into any types of inequalities that she may have seen over the years. At first, I did not think that Poway Unified would be a district that experienced many inequalities, but throughout our interview and the examples that she provided, I was able to understand that they do experience inequalities like many other areas. She briefly talked about the special education program and the people who make up the team of staff who evaluate students who may have special needs. She said that each portion of the team has evaluated the student on their own, and once they've evaluated the student on their own, they all come together, they come to a consensus, and then they will meet with the parents and reveal their findings and come up with a program that is best suited for the student. She said this is typically where the inequalities begin to come into play. She explained that basically what happens when the parents meet the team, that the kind of education the child is going to receive is directly linked to their socioeconomic status, race, and sometimes the student's gender. She said what ends up happening is that there are parents who are not educated enough to know what it is that the team is even explaining to them. They present them graphs and give them numbers, and they just point things out and say, this is where your child falls. And a parent just most of the time doesn't really know what any of that means, and they just go along with it. And so she said what ends up happening is that the parents that aren't knowledgeable in those types of situations, they get swallowed up by the system because they're depending on the professionals to take care of their child. The programs that are created for each student, she said, are usually created to benefit the teacher more than the student themselves. For example, she told me about one student who they wanted to pull for 30 minutes a day at the same time to practice writing. When the parent tried to protest, the parents were basically shut down. And this was because the teacher said that they did not have time to work with the student individually. The only way that they could work with the student was in a small group setting at this time each day. And the parents' concern was that with this was that, well, then my son or daughter is going to miss out on this portion of this class every day. They're going to come back to this class being behind their peers, and how is that going to make them feel if they're not up to speed with everybody else? She said in regards to socioeconomic status that if the parents have money, they can go into meetings with their own attorney, a psychiatrist, and sometimes they even hire their own educational consultants. And all they have to do is sit there and the attorney will do all of the talking for them. And when this happens, the child ends up getting into the programs that the parent wants them to be into, opposed to what the school just wants to offer them. One example she gave me here was that there was a parent who is part of many special needs organizations. She sits on boards in related to special needs students, and she also works within a school system. She went against the recommendations of the school and she fought it with her own status and an attorney. And the outcome of that was that her daughter was enrolled in a summer program, so she did not even need to be pulled out of classes during the school year. And then on top of that, the school offered to pay for her daughter to be enrolled in the program. The person I interviewed made it clear that if you are considered to be a parent from a low socioeconomic status, that you are more than likely not going to get this type of treatment from the schools, especially have them pay for your child's programs. She said if you want better for your child, you need representation and you have to fight for it. Otherwise, you're left taking what is being offered. For me, I thought that was pretty sad because if it comes down to money, it just means that if you don't have it, then your child is going to suffer because of it. So the students of parents of the high socioeconomic status will get the best, while the other students can only take what they can. She talked more about knowledge and race, and she told me that when parents meet with the team, they're given a document that consists of lots of big words and phrases, which I'm sure many of us can imagine. Anybody who's ever seen a document typically scrolls to the bottom and clicks, I agree. With the parents, when they receive these, she said they kind of have that same mentality. They don't really know what it is. They assume it's good for them, so they just sign it and give it back to the administrators. She did say that the schools kind of depend on that as well with the parents who are not as knowledgeable, because they just want them to be compliant and just want the parent to go with what it is that they want. She said she sees this a lot with Hispanic families, that they seem to be the families that don't seek more alternatives, that they go into it, they're dependent on the professionals, they sign what's given to them, and their student just gets what they get. She said she's also seen, and she did quote this, that the Hispanic families get pushed around by the staff. And then she also referenced families from Asian countries and also from India, that they go into those meetings thinking, they can get what they want for their students. I'm sorry. The parents from Asian countries and from India are more knowledgeable than some of the other families here. She referenced Hispanic families. So when they go into the meetings, the schools think that they can also take advantage of them, but they actually know more than what the schools give them credit for. So they fight back and they protest, and they end up getting what they want as well. I thought actually this was interesting when she mentioned that, because as I was doing my research for the paper, I had read that students from Asian families have access to education similar to white students. She also said that the schools know how to get around people. She said they use intimidation with parents who may not know any better. So again, that comes down to knowledge, which is linked to low status. I thought that we had kind of covered what we could in regards to the race and status being linked to educational inequalities. So I asked her if she had seen any inequalities in regards to gender, because it wasn't something she had mentioned up to this point. And she says she does see boys and girls treated differently. It wasn't so much on the educational level. She said that she sees that boys are viewed as being bad or just not destructive, out of line. I think like typical boy, more like terms that are used to describe little boys. So she said when the boys are being categorized as acting out of line, that they get pulled from class, they may get disciplined a little bit more than the females will, because the female students are viewed as being, cute and giggly, and, they don't get into trouble. She also said that she's seen that there are teachers who will favor boys over girls, or who favor girls over boys, which can then also lead to different types of access and opportunities within education, because if you're a female student and you end up with a teacher who favors male students, you may not get the attention you need, which ends up being the ripple effect. You don't get the attention, you don't do well, so on and so forth. She did not really have too much to say about the gender aspect of the inequalities that she has seen. So what she showed me was that we do have inequalities within our schools. It happens in our own neighborhoods, and even in districts that we may not even think that it would be happening in. And it's pretty sad that this would happen with special needs students as well, because I feel like those types of students need a lot more maybe than others, and they definitely should not be taken advantage of, and their parents should not be taken advantage of because of they may not make six figures. That just blows my mind. But yeah, so that was my interview. Thanks.